Welcome back to the channel. It's time for another 2020 college football team schedule preview. I'll put a link up here to a playlist that's got all the teams in it that we've done so far. Click the link. It'll take you to the playlist and you can check out any of the teams that might be interesting to you. Don't forget to tune in tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube for the call-in show, Uncle Lou After Dark. We do that every Tuesday and Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. College football show, live show. We take calls from college football fans from all over the country. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 p.m. But let's get started with today's video. Hey, good morning, and it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou. Live for you on LouTube today. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also. And in addition to that as well, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year, and some of them are even watchable. And this one will definitely be watchable. You know why?
All this guy does is talk about Miami.
That's right. This video is a 2020 schedule preview for none other than the Miami Hurricanes. Let's go. Squid Lord, good morning and that. Shout out to you, sir. Squid Lord requested this Miami Hurricanes schedule preview over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. Squid Lord, I really appreciate you supporting the channel over there on the Patreon page. Means a lot to me, sir. It really, really does. Thank you from the bottom of Uncle Lou's heart. If you're watching this video and you want to directly support the channel over on the Patreon page, click the link down below that says support the channel. It'll take you over to the Uncle Lou Patreon page. You can get yourself signed up. There's all kinds of perks and benefits for signing up over there, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you. All right, here we go, Miami Hurricanes. Before we pull up the 2020 schedule, we'll briefly run through the 2019 schedule so we have an idea of what to compare the 2020 schedule to. Of course, Miami had a terrible, disappointing, awful season in 2019. There's really no sugarcoating it. I remember all last offseason saying, yeah, I know Miami maybe talent-wise isn't where they need to be. They've got a first-year coaching staff with Manny Diaz, yada, yada, yada. But look at the schedule. Their schedule was pitiful. They played Florida first. Outside of that, no ranked teams on the entire schedule. And I remember saying if they don't win 10 games, Manny Diaz might be the worst coach in the history of college football. And guess what? You went 6-6. Now, I'm not willing to go that far that Manny Diaz is the worst ever. I try very hard not to judge a coach off of his year one results, especially a coach who has never been a head coach before anywhere in college football, and such was the case with Manny Diaz.
Come on, George.
But you did go 6-6, right? You were 4-4 in the ACC, and you're currently on a 3-game losing streak heading into the 2020 season. You went 6-7 overall with the bowl loss, but for the purposes of this video, we're only comparing regular season schedules because we don't know what the postseason in 2020 is going to look like. So here's the 2019 schedule. I mentioned Florida, the quote-unquote week 0 game, right? Actually, a pretty good game. Could it be that that was the best game Miami played all year? Maybe. You came up a little bit short in that one, 24-20. Florida ended up being a pretty good team in 2019. Then you had your bye week when everyone else was having their week 1. So you actually had 3 bye weeks in 2019 because of some scheduling quirks and because everyone had 2 bye weeks. Your week 1 game got moved up to week 0. That gave you the 3rd bye week. But you come out of that, you start your ACC schedule on the road at North Carolina, another team that had a brand new coach in, right, Mac Brown. Now, he had a ton of coaching experience, clearly, North Carolina years ago, and then Texas more recently, about 15 years ago, where he won a national title down there, had retired for a while, came back to North Carolina, and they beat you. 28-25, I think the score of that game was. Entertaining game, interesting game, but you came up short, and you're sitting there 0-2. Bethune-Cookman at home, you won 63-0. Central Michigan, this was a sign of things to come. You did win that game, but you won 17-12. Offense was clearly Miami's issue last year, and it reared its ugly head on multiple occasions. You escaped with a win against Central Michigan, 17-12. That took you into your next bye week. You come out of that, you lose to Virginia Tech at home, 42-35. Epic comeback in that game by Miami after switching quarterbacks, but it was too little too late, and you come up short, 42-35. Virginia, you somehow beat Virginia. Now, that's probably your best win. I think you probably played your best game against Florida, but Virginia was probably your best win. You beat them 17-9. Your defense played amazing in that game. Again, your offense struggled, scoring 17 points, but you came away with a win. And then you had the Georgia Tech loss in overtime, 28-21. That was your second consecutive loss to Georgia Tech. There is no such thing as a football program that is relevant that has currently lost 2 games in a row to Georgia Tech. They don't exist. You're one of those teams. It's just absolutely pitiful.
You lost to Georgia Tech! How's that possible?
Back-to-back road games at Pitt and at FSU. These road games came at a great time. You won both of them. You needed to get out of Miami. There was a lot of negativity floating around the program after that loss to Georgia Tech. You go on the road, you beat Pitt 16-12, you beat FSU 27-10. Back home to Louisville, the momentum carries forward. You beat them 52-27. Last bye week of the year, before your final 2 games of the year, home against FIU and on the road at Duke, and you lost both of them. Yes, you lost to FIU 30-24. One of the most, if not the most, embarrassing and humiliating losses in the history of Miami Hurricanes football, at least in the last 30 years for sure. Absolutely inexcusable. I don't care, first-year coach, quarterback issues, offensive coordinator issues. It doesn't matter. There is zero excuse for a program like Miami losing to FIU, but you found a way to do it. Not to be outdone, you went on the road the following week and lost to Duke, again, for the second year in a row. They're in the Georgia Tech category. I'm sorry. If you are currently on a 2-game losing streak to Duke, you're currently an irrelevant program, and that's just the boat that Miami finds themselves in. So you finished the regular season 6-6. I didn't even mention the embarrassment that was your bowl game because this is a regular season schedule. But yes, you managed to get shut out in a bowl game against Louisiana Tech and lose. The only team in the entire bowl season that couldn't score a point. How many bowl games are there? 40. That's 80 teams. 0 points scored for Miami. Pitiful. Anyway, non-con, Florida, Bethune-Cookman, Central Michigan, and FIU. Outside of Florida, those are 3 terrible teams, but somehow you lost 2 of them. You went 2-2 in the non-con. Road games at UNC, at Pitt, at FSU, at Duke. You went 2-2. The problem is none of those teams are that good, and you went 2-2. 2-3 if you include the neutral site game against Florida. And your toughest 3-game stretch, you didn't have a tough 3-game stretch. There is no 3 games in a row on this schedule. That was hard. And you went 6-6. It's hard to justify it. All right, that's it for 2019. Here comes 2020. Is 2020 easier? I don't see how it can be any easier than 2019, to be honest. There ain't a team in America that wouldn't have loved to have had Miami's schedule in 2019. Here's 2020, though. Let's take a look. You open up at home against Temple. Is this an interesting game? No, you should beat them. The only thing that makes it a little bit interesting is, of course, Manny Diaz actually accepted the head coaching job at Temple for about 2 weeks. Then Mark Richt quit, got fired, stepped down, resigned, got asked to leave, whatever. And Manny Diaz said, Temple, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to dip back down to South Beach, took the job there. So it's interesting for that reason. But again, you should beat them, but you should beat FIU and Duke and Georgia Tech. So you host Temple, then you host Wagner. I'm going to be honest with you. I do college football for a living. I have never heard of this team. I had to look it up to make sure it wasn't an error on the page that I get my schedules from. But no, you host something called Wagner. Then you host UAB. Any typical Power 5 team should go 3-0 in that stretch. Can you go 2-1? Maybe. Maybe you go 3-0. Maybe you're a lot better this year. We're not doing predictions here. So you open up with 3 non-con games all at home. Temple, Wagner, UAB. Then you go on the road for your final non-con game to Michigan State. I want to salute Miami and Michigan State for scheduling this home-and-home series. I don't like neutral site games. It's no secret. I don't try to hide it. I don't like neutral site games. I don't like Georgia, Florida, and Jacksonville. I don't like Texas OU in Dallas. I don't like these week 1 kickoff classics neutral site games. I like home and home. College football is a college sport. It should be played on a college campus. Well, unless you're Miami, in which case you can't afford to put a stadium on your campus, so you have to borrow one from the NFL off of campus. But generally speaking, college football should be played on a college campus. Salute to Miami and Michigan State for scheduling this home and home. Won't be an easy task. Now, they weren't very good last year or the year before for that matter. They've got a new coach for 2020, Mel Tucker, formerly DC at Georgia, spent a year at Colorado, now head coach at Michigan State after they decided to part ways with Mark D'Antonio, who took Michigan State to a playoffs not that long ago, 4 or 5 seasons ago, but they've just been downhill since then, a team that has had no offense at all. Miami's offense might even be better than Michigan State's. That's how bad Michigan State's offense has been. But this will be an interesting game. And honestly, this comes at sort of a weird point in the season in that you don't normally see big non-con matchups in week 4. So I have a feeling a lot of people will be excited and interested in and watch this game. Home against Pitt to kick off your ACC schedule. Then on the road at Duke.
Wake Forest, you dumbass.
Before your bye week. So your bye week comes at a good time. You play basically half your schedule. Then you have your bye week. And then you get ready for your second half of your schedule. Your first 2 ACC games, I think, are winnable. Home against Pitt and on the road at Wake Forest. Pitt and Wake are both in that group of ACC teams, and there's about 10 of them that are really 6 or 7 win teams. Some of them end up winning 8 or 9 because they play all the other 6-win ACC teams, but there's just a big group of teams that aren't very good. They're basically 6-win teams. Miami's in that category right now. You need to start beating the Pitts and the Wakes on a regular basis if you're going to ever get back to what you want to get back to. We'll see if you can do that here. Bye week, come out of that. You host UNC, great game from a year ago. Mac Brown year 2, Manny Diaz year 2. You get them at home this time. I think UNC is going to be a pretty good team in 2020. That should be a good game. On the road at Virginia, and then the rivalry game at home against Florida State. If you told a Miami fan you're going to beat Florida State and you're going to go 6-6, they would laugh at you. Those two things just seem like they don't go together. But of course, Florida State has had issues of its own. And yeah, you beat Florida State last year and you managed to somehow go 6-6. That's amazing. You get them at home this year, you'd like to beat them again. Back-to-back road games here against Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech, and then you finish up at home against Duke. So those last 2 games of the year are critical. They're crucial. Miami should not be looking at a schedule and going, man, I hope we can beat Georgia Tech and Duke at the end of the year. Those should be automatic wins for a program like Miami. But like I mentioned, you've lost 2 in a row to both of those teams that you close out your schedule with in 2020. And those 2 games come after a road trip to Virginia Tech. Miami's season, to me, is probably going to come down to those last 3 games. If Miami is back or headed back to the program that they want to be, they will beat Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, and Duke at the end of the season. If they're not, they will lose 1 or more of those games. That all remains to be seen. So there's the schedule. To recap the non-con, Temple, Wagner, UAB at home to start the season. Week 4 on the road at Michigan State, a Power 5 versus Power 5 matchup. I think that's a reasonable non-con schedule. As long as teams play 1 major out-of-conference opponent, I don't really care what they do with the rest of their non-con games, so I have no problem with your non-con schedule here. On the road, at Wake, at Virginia Tech, at Georgia Tech, and at Michigan State. So 5 road games. Last year, you only have 4 road games, and you lost 2 of them. This year, you got 5 road games. You got to find a way to win more of those than you lose. And then your toughest 3-game stretch, I think 4, 5, and 6 could be tough. At Michigan State, home against Pitt, and at Wake Forest. Of course, Wake Forest will probably be down this year. They lost their best player. Yeah, good morning in that. But the point is, you've got to start beating these teams. And Michigan State, then your ACC schedule kicks off at home with Pitt and back on the road at Wake. You need to be 6-0. There's not really a reason Miami shouldn't be 6-0 after those first 6 games. We'll see. And then 8, 9, and 10 are critical games, right? I mean, you've got home against UNC, on the road at Virginia, home against Florida State. Florida State is obvious. That's your rivalry game. All of us college football fans remember those classic Miami-Florida State games. North Carolina beat you last year. They're on the rise, in my opinion. Miami wants to be on the rise. The winner of that game, I think, is set up pretty good in the ACC for this year. And then sandwiched in between that, a road game at Virginia. And I didn't even mention the last 2 games of the year, which shouldn't be mentioned in a discussion about toughest stretch of games. But at Georgia Tech, home against Duke, you got to win those. They've each beat you the last 2 years. Maybe you throw that in there too. So anyway, there it is. That's the 2020 schedule for the University of Miami Hurricanes. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give this video a thumbs up. I'm doing a whole series of these. Make sure you check them out. There'll be more coming out even today. I'm doing several of these videos today. I think one got posted earlier, and now there's this one. There'll be at least one more posted later. I hope you guys are enjoying them. Let me know down below, as usual, when I do your schedule previews. I'm curious, who do you think could beat Miami outside of the obvious? So forget about Michigan State. Forget about Florida State. Well, let's do this. Georgia Tech and Duke. And I know Miami fans are going to say 2-0 against Georgia Tech and Duke. Non-Miami fans, what will Miami's record be against Georgia Tech and Duke this year? 2-0, 1-1, or 0-2? Let me know, and have a good morning in that.
Come on, Tour.